What up, it's your boy, Incredible Mini. Yes, I am back at it again, and this is Lucifer Season 5, Part 1, Episode 8, the finale. And boy, oh boy, what a finale it was. We have God, Michael, and all these stupid plans. And Maze? Let's get it, man. There were some moments that I loved. I want to say this is how you do a finale. Now, the ending half in the very beginning, and then maybe midway through, it kind of fell off a little bit for me, but everything else I thoroughly enjoyed. This episode continued right after episode 7, and we see Dan shooting Lucifer realizing that he's okay, and Chloe being all kinds of upset at Dan, and we're all over here like, yep, you are right to be upset at Dan. Dan had some problems going into this episode, but we know Michael played on Dan's fears, and that's what Michael does. And we learned this episode that Michael has a big alternate plan that he's trying to set up. And in this episode, we see him scheming throughout the entire episode. We see that Chloe and Lucifer are still kind of dealing with some things because Chloe is kind of feeling maybe since Lucifer hasn't really said that he loved her, maybe he doesn't love her because he's not vulnerable around her anymore. And that kind of opened something up in Chloe's mind and was like, well, maybe he doesn't love me. But we know how Lucifer feels about Chloe. He just hasn't said it yet. And it's very evident in this episode when Chloe goes missing. Chloe decided to still stay on the Whisper murder case because she felt like Larsky didn't do, I think that's his name, Larsky didn't commit the crime. She felt like, well, we know that he done the last one, but like the others, they didn't really resonate with Chloe that he did those. So she decided to investigate the actual killer. And the way that everything was going with the angles and how it was being shot, it made you think that the killer took Chloe when she gets kidnapped. Now, halfway through the episode, I kind of figured it out. But before then, they had me hooked. They had me hooked. I thought the killer actually took her. Now, I said this in my last video. I think I did. It was a given that Pete was the killer. It wasn't rocket science, man. I mean, the dude felt, to me, he felt a little bit too comfortable in the dark room when he was getting Ella the magnifying glass to look at the film. And comes to find out, he's been growing lilies. He has his whole little separate room in his house, and he's been killing people. His sole reason for killing people was because his mom yelled at him and she grew lilies. So you decided to kill people and give them lilies and cut their vocal cords because she yelled at you. Okay, first of all, he's crazy, for sure. Like, legit crazy. But he said he was trying to date Ella to try to find a new, well, maybe not a new, but he just didn't, he wanted to see if he can actually connect with somebody. And turns out he didn't really connect with Ella either. And while they were doing that whole case trying to find the actual killer, and we all knew it was Pete. Let's just be real. We knew it was Pete. But we get Detective Lucifer and Ella just straight up here going on the actual case, working it with Lucifer. It was fun. That was fun to see Detective excuse me. It was fun to see Detective Lucifer and Ella solve the case, and Lucifer actually put in detective work. Granted, he had to talk to Amenadiel to have it happen, but he actually put in detective work to help solve the case to find Chloe. And then it turns out that Michael kidnapped Chloe. And while this is taking place, he also set things in motion with Amenadiel as well. But one of the things that I loved about this episode is we see Maze talking to Amenadiel while Amenadiel's getting ready to take Charlie to the hospital because Charlie has a cold. And Maze sees that it's Lucifer and she's not answering her phone because she's upset at him because he kept her mother a secret for so long. But what she's failing to realize is Lucifer gave Lilith his word that he wouldn't tell her kids. And Maze isn't really hearing that, but also at the same time later in the episode, Michael plays on these feelings that she's upset about her mother and upset at Lucifer. I loved Maze this season. I loved Maze. Maze became such a wonderful character, going through all of these emotions, trying to find herself, and she kind of wants a soul. And we see that kind of broken down when she decides to answer her phone, and Lucifer tells her that Chloe's missing. And she's like, what? and she immediately goes to help. What I love is Maze thinks she needs a soul to connect and realize, and she doesn't, because Maze, you are already doing everything that people with souls does, and you just haven't realized it yet. But later in the episode, after we realize that Michael is the one that took Chloe, oh my gosh, she teams up with Michael. But we also learned that Dan directed this episode, which was a wonderful thing. It was a nice episode, but Dan directed it, so huge shout out to Kevin Alejandro. Huge big ups, man. It was a nice episode. What else happened? Oh, okay. Now let's talk about the fact that Michael played on the Menadil's feelings, well, not his fears about baby Charlie, and we come to find out that baby Charlie is an actual human. He's nothing about him is angelic. He's an actual legit human, and the Menadil's fears of him dying and growing old and suffering was starting to unravel, and Michael played on those feelings. But what I love about this episode is because Michael had this big whole grand scheme planned out, and it took place in the police precinct because Lucifer was getting ready to tell Chloe that he loved her, and the Menadil froze time because he's freaking out because of everything that Michael done. And it upsets me because he was telling her, he was finna tell her that he loved her, and Michael comes up here with this whole grand scheme plan, messing with a Menadil's head, and the Menadil, like, he didn't freeze time, like, he didn't, like, slow down time, he froze time completely. Everybody stopped, and right when Lucifer was finna tell Chloe that he loved her, oh boy. So Michael comes in, we're like, oh wow, look, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, and then Maze comes in and helps Michael fight Lucifer in a minute, and it's a full-blown fight, and we're connecting it, and it was good, and I really enjoyed it. But then we see Maze being upset and attacking Lucifer because I'm assuming she wants a soul, and Lucifer told her that, what, it's not possible. I've never seen it done. But Maze is so thoroughly upset, and Michael is constantly playing on these fears, but she decided to team up with Michael. I guess because she feels like he's telling her the truth because Lucifer left some things out. And I'm assuming she wants the ring. She wants the ring, right? Maybe because it's connected to Lilith, or does she think getting the immortality out of the ring will give her a soul? I honestly don't know. I don't know what Maze wants, but I'm thoroughly intrigued to find out in season 5, part 2. But we see them having a full-blown fight, and I love the wonderful moment when Maze kicks Lucifer through the glass and it breaks, and then it's just all frozen in the air. That was a nice shot. But we see Maze and Lucifer going at it, Amenadiel to Michael, and Amenadiel starts to beat Michael, then Michael starts to beat Amenadiel, then Lucifer starts to beat Maze, then Maze comes back with a little bit of attack and stuff. So it started to be in a full-blown fight, and the fight is going ham, boom, boom, bam, bam, and it was getting good. And the next thing you know, this is all you heard. Children, enough. I don't like it when you fight. Man, oh my gosh, Dennis Hayward appearing as God. We're over here like, finally, 5 years. 5 years. We had to wait 5 years for Chloe and Lucifer. We had to wait 5 years for Dennis Hayward to appear as God, but we're finally here. And we was like, yes. And this man's voice was like butter, and that's how it went off. But he just looks calm, cool, and collected up there as God. Enough. And it was so epic. So I can't wait for season 5 part 2 because it ended on a nice cliffhanger. It wasn't like too extravagant or anything like, oh, this happened, so oh man, we gotta wait and find out what's gonna happen. No, like, oh, God appeared, so everything stopped, so now we gotta wait to see what happens until season 5 part 2. But dude, I thoroughly enjoyed season 5 part 1. I loved every single minute of it. And I feel like the characters in season 5 shined brighter than they ever did. Season 5, it seemed like everybody shined. Nobody was left out. Everybody got the time they needed to develop, and they got the time to shine in season 5. We see Maze going through so many emotions, meeting her mother, feeling abandoned. We see so much going on with Maze that Maze felt like a different character this season, and I'm loving every part of it. And now we see her kind of going through this transition that she wants a soul, and now it seems like we're getting another Maze. And I'm hoping that she doesn't decide to like come like a half of a villain in the second half of season 5, because I feel like that's the direction that they're going. They're going to try to push Maze into being a villain in the back half of season 5, but I'm hoping not, man, because I really love Maze. Even though she does her own thing, I don't want her to be against Lucifer. We see Amenadiel finding out that Charlie's an actual normal human. He's not angelic in any kind of way, and he's upset about that. I guess, because he doesn't want Charlie to die or suffer or anything like that. We see Chloe and Lucifer still having their moments, and I feel like he was definitely going to say I love you, but we got cut short, so we have to wait to season 5 part 2, and hopefully he can tell her that he loves her, and then we can pick up right off on our happy little skippy-go-lucky trail with Lucifer and Chloe's relationship. Ella, I hope something happens for Ella in the next season, because she started on a trend this season, but it ended up derailing because she ended up dating a serial killer. And I mean, that's going to mess with anybody. I don't care if you're the strongest willed person in the world. That's going to mess with you if you find out your significant other was a serial killer. That's hardcore, man. And then we have Dan. Dan still flipped out that Lucifer is actually Lucifer. But something that stuck out in the beginning of this episode was that, well, in episode 7, I mean, when Chloe said that it might have been the beginning of this episode. But anyway, when she mentioned that that Lucifer is actually a really good guy, and I feel like it's gonna take a minute for Dan, but I feel like Dan's gonna come around because Dan really shined in season 5. Him and Maze and honestly, in my opinion, are the two characters that really shined in season 5 for their development more so than anything. Everybody else had their moments, but I feel like those two characters really, really shine. This is your boy Dick Incredible. Don't forget to smash the like button until you can't smash it anymore. Comment down below and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them, and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.
I ain't taking a backseat, I'm passing anybody else who is rapping. I'm nasty, ain't nobody able to catch me. They gasping, they cannot compare, they can't match me. I'm at half speed.